Hi, I'm Stacy Collier, and I'm a partner and the Chief Talent Officer at Nixon Peabody. I am thrilled to be at King Arthur Baking today in Norwich, Vermont for our Let's Talk series, where we speak with inspiring women about their leadership journeys and their paths to success. With me today is my friend and longtime collaborator, Karen Colberg. She's the CEO of King Arthur Baking and someone that I've had the pleasure of working with for 2 decades at this point now. I know this is going to be a terrific conversation, so why don't we just dive in? So Karen, for starters, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and I'm really grateful to get the time to spend together. Just to introduce yourself a little bit to our audience and talk a little bit about your career path and your journey to leadership.
Okay, great. Thank you for coming. It's a real treat to have you here. It's a treat for you anytime to come to King Arthur, so thank you. So as you said, I've been here for 20 years. I've been at King Arthur, and I have held a variety of roles, each and every one I've loved, and there's been a natural progression. I'm going to start a little bit though with kind of going pre-King Arthur.
Yeah.
And I started at GE, General Electric. I always say the words now because a lot of the young folks aren't as familiar with the acronym. But I started in their financial management program, and it was foundational to my skill set and it takes advantage, I think, of natural aptitudes that I probably brought to it. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 3 years. I had 2 years in the corporate audit staff, but I ended up in their investment office that managed their pension fund, another word that many folks might not be familiar with. And I knew I didn't want to do that, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but yet, education was important to my family. I decided to apply to graduate school, and I went to business school. Not certain of what I would do next, but very much wanting to figure it out. And went from there to the Gap, and moved to San Francisco and lived on the West Coast, and it was fantastic. And it ultimately was all the things I wanted to do. Certainly coming out of business school, and then life happens, and I finally got married and was thinking about a family. And my husband and I were both out on the West Coast, but family was back here, and we decided to load up the Ford F-150 and drive across the country and move back to this area because it was common to both of us, but didn't know what I was going to do. And the only place I wanted to work was King Arthur. And the one job I didn't mention was my high school college job was at bakery. And I share that only because I love baking and I love what it's about. And so I really did want to work here. And I was here for 5 years actually before becoming an employee owner, and just sort of stayed in touch, and something finally happened. And then, like I said, I've been here 20 years, and I've been in merchandising and marketing, and it's just evolved very organically over time, and became co-CEO 9 years ago and sole CEO 2 years ago.
So talk a little bit about that, the co-CEO piece, because I think that's a real differentiator for King Arthur. And I know from my work with you that all my clients are different, right? And they do different things. But one of the things that I have really admired about King Arthur is your willingness to be different, to take risks, to go outside the norm a little bit.
In a company like ours, and I think it's true in a company like anywhere, succession planning is hard.
Right.
It's you can talk about it, you can plan for it, but when the reality comes, it's not necessarily it doesn't always play out exactly as you imagine. And so our predecessor left, and the board, we are 100% employee owned, so we're private. We answer to the employees of the company, and the board said, let's try this co-CEO structure because of the way, I think it's cultural, and because of the way the company was led at the time. We had a strategy team. It was 5 people then. It's actually 10 now. But there's 5-person team, and so it made sense for 3 of us. And what was, I think, unique about it, and what made it successful was who we were as individuals.
Right.
And so co-leadership absolutely worked for King Arthur, and it wasn't easy, but it was intentional.
Right.
We knew what our strengths were, we knew what our weaknesses were, and most importantly, we were willing to just step into the hard conversations regularly as needed. We actually had a coach, and we thought, okay, we'll bring a coach in for a year, and we as we say, and we kind of graduated in 6 months because we were just so both committed to what we were trying to accomplish for the company and for the ESOP and of course the employee owners, and very cognizant of what could be the pitfalls, if you will, and what we needed to do. And so our commitment to that, kind of just made it work. And I think none of us were like at that point of succession or transition. As I said, I think I may have said this, I loved every job I had. I would have been perfectly content to be the director of merchandising, which is where I started. I was CMO at the time, and then this happened, and we said it was a fantastic opportunity. We weren't expecting it at that moment, but we jumped into it, and it's been fantastic.
The question that springs to mind for me is, and this is not true of all leaders, of course, and I know there's a lot of research out there about what makes a good leader and what that looks like. But one of the things as you're talking that strikes me is the lack of ego, right? Sometimes you think of leaders as somebody who's known from the time they were in kindergarten that they were going to be the CEO of an organization, or they were going to be the president of the United States, or whatever it is, right? And so I hear you talking about, I was happy in every job I had, and I would have been happy to keep doing what I was doing, and I was happy to be the CEO, and it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. And so it makes me think a bit about, seeking leadership versus leadership choosing you.
Yeah.
And maybe if you could speak a little bit to the latter, because I think that's really how I think of your story.
Leadership finding me is such an interesting phrase because of I'm going to say the lack of ego. And I think my co-CEOs, and I have not been naming them, Ralph and Suzanne, and I've been reluctant to, I don't know why. And so we talked about how the three of us really showed up with, I'll say, a lack of ego. I think one of the things I talk about all the time, just it's a defining aspect of who I am, is humility. But we were ready, or at least I'll speak personally, why I felt ready and eager to step into that when it found me or when it came, is how and why I am who I am. Work ethic, education, just and a deep sense of accountability to others. And so I think some of those personal attributes, I'll say, prepared me for something that I didn't know was going to be in my future. And I think that's important for people coming into leadership, is kind of finding what you're good at, and trusting in that, knowing what you're good at. And I think it enables you to be ready to take advantage of the opportunities as they come, because they're unpredictable.
I do think that sometimes people will turn down leadership opportunities because they think they're not 100% prepared. Right. And I guess I would ask you, what advice would you give to somebody who is offered a leadership opportunity? It doesn't have to be the CEO, but it could be another bigger job than what they have, when they're feeling like they're not prepared.
When I think about whether I'm talking to my children or to the company or like this, is I think you have to figure out what you're good at. I think you have to figure out what are the skills and the aptitudes, what do I enjoy doing, because work does take a fair amount of time. And so you do want to be, I'll just use the doing for a second, the doing work that you find interesting, you might be contributing, maybe you find value in contributing, but what is it that drives you and what you're good at? And then say, where can I bring those, how can I bring those skills to whether it's a new position, a new organization, a new promotion, because I think that knowing who you are and trying to stay true to that and let that be a guide, I think enables you to, I want to say seize the moment. And I think ideally, in an ideal world, as you're trying to think about advice, and again, I have 3 20-year-olds, or not 20-year-olds, 3 children in their 20s.
I was going to say, when did you get those triplets?
Exactly. And so they, I'm constantly talking about what do you like? What do you want to do? What are you good at? And then if you can marry that up, like for me, going back to King Arthur and baking and loving what King Arthur is about, I feel so fortunate to have found a company in a I'm going to say a hobby, or something I'm passionate about, something that I enjoy doing, something that is therapy for me. And that's not always the case, but I think you can find happiness, contentment in a variety of industries and places because of the work that you're doing. I think values alignment is important. I think working somewhere where you just kind of feel good about what the company is about is important. But you don't have to be a user of every single product or passionate about the way something is made or built to be, I think, content in an organization, if that makes sense.
What do you think what are your favorite attributes of the company? Because when you talk about values alignment, your values with the company's values, how does that line up for you? What do you think are the things that make this such a great fit for you?
So when I often, hopefully frequently enough, will make reference to Frank and Brenna Sands. So this company is 100% employee owned. The brand has been around since, well, the brand technically, King Arthur, is 1896. The Sands Taylor Wood Company's been around since 1790. And they had the vision and the wisdom to say, we want to build a place where we can unleash the power of baking. And we want to do it in a way where we're doing right by everyone, and so that resonates with me. And that means, first and foremost, we want to make sure we're, taking care of, and I don't mean that in a paternalistic way, but where we creating a culture and a workspace and opportunities for people at the company. Are we treating our customers with respect and our partners with, the way they would want, the way we would want to be treated? And then the same thing is true for the environment and our community. And so we are a benefit corporation in addition to being 100% employee owned. And so those values that are, they were, built and I'll say created and passed on from the Sands, we are stewards of. And I think not everybody, I may be exaggerating a little bit, but most people that come and talk, either choose to work at the company, would like to work at the company, interview, speak to valuing our employee ownership and all that it means.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Yeah.
As an insider outsider, I guess
Yes.
I could call myself that,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I see that, when I've done trainings for you, when I go to the cafe, when I go to the store, there's a different level of pride,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With your employee owners, and I think it shows that mission and the values alignment is
Right.
something that people can feel. It's
Right.
palatable, and I can't help but think that it isn't something that comes from above, right?
Yeah.
That the leaders role modeling that is probably an important part of your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I look for everybody to kind of to show up as employee owners, and I think people expect that of each other, and it absolutely starts with everyone on the strategy team, who are sort of the the collaborative leaders of the company. It absolutely starts there for
Yeah.
people to show up with just a commitment to our values and a caring for us
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
Let me pivot a little bit, because one of the things that, one of the initiatives I think you were very involved with, if not the driver of, was the rebranding a few years ago from, and I still have to stop myself from saying King Arthur Flour versus King Arthur Baking. But talk a little bit about what was going on there,
Yep.
what was the driving force?
Yep. So King Arthur, we changed the name, not just the logo, because of the heritage of the brand, the legacy of the brand, and what it meant for I'll say generations of bakers. And when you have, to put a business term on it, equity in that, there's a lot of fear certainly across the company around making a change to what was a night on a horse. You'll remember it.
Yeah.
People might not remember it. And we needed to modernize. We needed to create both I'll say a name of the company that spoke broader than flour per se.
Right.
We were well beyond flour
Right.
at that point. But baking is obviously much more broad and encompassing, and speaks to both what we are doing and what we can do. And then the logo itself, again, and I think there was a lot of nostalgia, and there was a lot of pushback internally.
Yeah.
And that's we'll talk about that in a sec. Like, I wanted people to air those anxieties
Right.
about it, but we needed to develop something that was going to both be relevant and bring in I'll say the current and future bakers, and be something that I'm going to say that was not potentially alienating or not drawing people in that logo, which had been amazing for a century or more. It was time to update it, and it was a great project. So the other thing I want to say about it really quickly is, we were going live in March of 2020,
Right.
and we all know what happened, and we were ready, and it was February, and pandemic comes, we shut down, and so we ended up kind of launching in the summer, July of 2020. And it because, as I said back then, baking had become America's pastime.
Right.
The whole thing went so kind of fast and seamlessly. We're lucky a little bit in that we do something that people love to do. Our product was so needed at that time, and then the rebranding just kind of, it had immense wind in its sails. So it was a great success. It's something, if I leave tomorrow, I'm so proud of. And I didn't do it alone.
No.
There were, the CMO and the creative director, the three of us, kind of shepherd this very transparent process to both find a partner and bring the exploration all the way to the wheat crown, which is what we have now.
The wheat crown, yeah, no, it's very cool. The number of times during the pandemic where people asked me, because of their knowledge of our relationship, if I could get them a bag of King Arthur flour was amazing. I'm like, I don't have that much pull, but I'll see what I can do. One other initiative and something that I wanted to talk about was the center with your school and the cafe and the store. And really kind of, it's a beacon of the community in a lot of ways. What was the intention behind that, and what are your desires about it going forward?
So that, again, a project that we knew we needed to take on, we knew we needed to renovate, we knew we wanted to build a new bakery and a new school, because those, forgive the analogy, are the gems in our crown, if you will. And it was again, a project with the creative director I just referenced. She and I were, at the heart of that, and it's just that I find it so fun to think about how do people come in and experience King Arthur? How do they come into the space? How do they know or experience, smell, feel, taste baking? And so to have that space and to have gotten it launched on a really tight budget, because budgets matter, and that's kind of goes back to GE and all my financial management. Yeah. And so it was tough, but it was great, because it's something that everybody's so proud of. And now it's a space that as I said, it's important to us to be citizens in the community as a company. And that means hosting people in the school, hosting organizations in the school where they can come, and whether it's doing team building, whether it's us offering a space for an infinite number of nonprofits that want to come in for a variety of reasons. And the school is quite busy, which is wonderful, but making sure we allow for that is important. The other thing that we have community pizza nights. There's outdoor pizza ovens, and those, again, there's, the community can come in, and whatever proceeds come from a pizza night are donated. So it's a space that employees are so proud of,
right? Because
they know that it serves a purpose in the community, and we've done that in Norwich, and as we continue to grow, I want us to be able to do that elsewhere.
What advice would you give to anybody coming up into leadership today? Are there things that you wish you knew then that you know today, that sort of thing?
I think there's a piece of just sort of, figuring out who you are and being true to who you are. Because I think there's a lot of expectations out there in the world. And to your point about, there's also a lot of influence in the world that, for better or for worse. And so, figuring out both what you're good at and what you want to do, and what I'm going to say brings you, not joy, but brings you fulfillment.
Yeah,
and
purpose.
and purpose. And so finding those things, and then again, and being able to articulate them, being able to speak to them. And if you don't, and seeking out guidance, seeking out mentors, seeking out people who can help you figure that out, I think is really important. And it's something else that I have, kind of a personal, I'll say this maybe more ethos, is, work hard, do a good job, and the outcomes will follow. And that's largely true. I think another really important point is to recognize that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to seek help, and it's okay to find those people in your life that that you can go to for guidance, for resource, for support, because the answer, sometimes you'll have the answers, sometimes you won't. And I think the strength is really in knowing, kind of knowing what you know, knowing kind of what you need to know, and being okay and being vulnerable. Like, I don't know how to figure this out. I need to go find help. I think there's real strength in that.
I love that the three of you brought in a coach as one of your first orders of business when you were elevated to the co-CEO role. What were and I love coaches, and we use coaches with our attorneys and our professional staff. What were some of the biggest value adds from working with a coach?
One, I love it too, because it's that opportunity to turn the mirror around and reflect on, is that how I'm perceived, or is that what I'm, is that really how I, whatever, say something, do something, interact. And so I think the biggest learnings from him were about being honest with each other and to the chase quickly. Let everything be as transparent and I'll say raw as it needs to be, so that you can be accomplishing kind of the strategy, because it's not like the strategy is easy, but you kind of know what you're trying to do.
Right.
And it's the people part that's always the most. I find the most fun, but it can be the most challenging too.
So Karen, what's next for King Arthur? Are there any exciting new initiatives, products, things on the horizon?
So many things, right? But what I really what's gotten me excited over the past couple of years, and also as I look ahead, is building more spaces for bakers to visit us. And we talked about Camelot, which is what we refer internally down the road to our destination. And we've been working on finding the next destination. And so because we know that when we have a place where people can come and smell and taste and feel baking, they build those connections around baking, and they develop a love of baking, or they've come because they have a love of baking. And it sets us apart. When I think of us, what makes us uniquely competitive in the world, it's the fact that we exist to teach people to bake, and we have incredible flour to help people do that, and 800 other items. So those destinations are important. They're not inexpensive. They're not quick to build, but they serve a real purpose. And so we actually are opening a destination in Alexandria, Virginia, in 2026. And we're in the process of identifying probably the next 2 to 3 locations in as many years. What we have also done and will continue to do is kind of long-term lease. We said we built out some pop-up stores, and we tested that in Greenville, South Carolina, 2 years ago. We were in Boston.
And you were in Newberry Street, right?
Boston and Virginia this past year, and we will continue to have pop-ups this coming, and they're opening in a couple. We have one in Bethesda, 2 out in Colorado, and those have been. They're building the business, they're building awareness, they're doing all the marketing things they're supposed to do, they're building market share, but they're building internal excitement. You can feel the employee owners being excited about what it means for King Arthur to grow. We are a national brand,
right,
but we're so New England centric, and having the same, I'll say, love for the brand in whether it's in down in the DC area or out west, or making our way out to the West Coast, I think is just so important to the continued sustainability and success of the business. So very excited about that.
I have a colleague in particular who's going to be very excited about the Alexandria location. It's going to be fantastic.
I was I'd originally given you a month, but as you know, with construction, things are not exactly on track, but it'll open.
It'll get there when it gets there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how about a couple of rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
You're not ready for, I'm sure. But, your first job, I think maybe you had alluded to, was it the bakery?
So I actually like to talk about my first job as being a paper route.
Oh.
I had a paper route. I got up at 6 a.m. for, 3+ years, pulled a wagon, rode a bike, and delivered the paper.
Oh my God. Do you still get up early?
Not as early as that, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to steal from Amy Poehler's podcast. She always asks a question about what's your favorite thing that makes you laugh, the thing that you can do to chill, to kind of take a deep breath. Is there something you watch or listen to or read?
I would say, so I will watch, and it's probably with my kids. So they make me laugh.
Yeah.
And as my husband does. Being with my family. I was going to say, I don't know if I could pick a place, but wherever they are.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you can't live without besides your attorney?
Dark chocolate.
Okay. And what's your favorite thing to bake?
I get asked that a lot.
Yeah.
And it usually is. There's a few things, and because I talk about them all the time, and people go, okay, chocolate chip cookies, and banana bread. I think the thing and that's true, and both have been baked in the past 72 hours. But I'll say I take inspiration both from us, King Arthur, as well as my husband, and that's favorite thing to learn to bake is going to continue to be sourdough bread baking. Sourdough bread. It takes time. It's love. it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's such a skill. So it's more of a learning journey that.
My youngest son had a starter and was nurturing it, and it made me think that he was going to be a great dad.
Yeah,
you know, because it takes so
absolutely.
much attention.
He will be.
Yeah.
It does. It takes attention.
Not for a long time.
The rewards are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Karen, thank you so much for doing this for me and
was my
for spending
pleasure.
time. I really appreciate it. It's been
It's so
my
fun.
pleasure. And I want to thank everybody who's joined this edition of Nixon Peabody's Let's Talk. I hope you're leaving inspired, and we'll see you next time.